Hello beautiful friends, I hope you're all doing incredibly well. I'm so excited to be sitting down and doing this video. I'm also a little bit nervous because, full disclosure, this is going to contain a lot of opinions and personal thoughts. So feel free to disagree, but if you're gonna leave something nasty in the comments, you can just go away. So, as I'm sure you saw by the title or thumbnail, I just turned 30 like 2 weeks ago, I think. I don't know, but I'm still adjusting to that idea because I still feel like I'm 22, 23, like it just does not compute to me that I'm 30 years old. Like it just, like I totally understand what older people meant now. When I was younger and they were like, I still feel 25, and we were always like, man, shut up. And now it's like, okay, no, seriously though. Like I don't feel like I'm actually 30 years old. So anyway, I thought that I would just sit down and compile some thoughts and just list out some things that I've learned over the past 30 years of my life. Mind you, these are not all going to be like super deep, revelational kind of things. Some of them are just kind of simplistic. Some of them are kind of deep, but I'm going to do my best to not have this video be 2 hours long, but I'm not going to make any promises. So anyway, I'm just going to hop right in, and this is in no particular order. I did journal these down, so I'm curious to see where my thoughts go as I start to talk about this. Okay, number one, just because it sounds good doesn't mean it's true. That is something that I've learned over the past few years as I have really started to disentangle my faith journey. I did not deconstruct. I've decided not to deconstruct after I realized that I was following some false teachings over the last few years. And this is not just in regards to faith, but really anything in life. Any Pinterest quote that you see where it's like, ooh, that sounds good. Just because it sounds really good doesn't mean it's true. That, like I said, that has mostly pertained to theological stuff in my life. Like just because it sounds like it would be right or it would be pure, the right thing to do, doesn't necessarily mean it's truth and that it is actually the right thing to do. And it's just been a very mind-blowing journey for me to really disentangle things that they sounded really good at the time, but then once I really started to dig into the truth, specifically my Bible, I found out that that is not true, and neither is that, and neither is that, and sometimes the truth doesn't feel good, and that's okay. So that is definitely one of the main lessons that I've learned in life. Just because it sounds good doesn't mean it's true. So just double check everything, like I said, whether it's in your faith journey or if it's a quote you found on Pinterest. So that was a really big one for me. Number two, you can change anything about yourself anytime you would like. I felt like I had to be stuffed into a little aesthetic box for a very long time. Like I had to be this way or this way or this way. Like if we're gonna talk about like high school, for example, like I felt like I either had to be like that emo alternative girl, or I had to be the preppy girl, or I had to be the artsy girl. Like I couldn't be a little bit of everything, and I just forced myself into that box for literally no reason. And so I kind of stuck with that mindset of being stuck in one area up until lately, up until the last couple of years, when I really realized that I am multi-passionate and that's okay, and I don't have to put myself in one little box. I can enjoy the goth style like Kat Von D. I can enjoy the retro style like Hayley Miller. I can enjoy a more hippie boho style. I can enjoy a primitive style. Like I don't have to stuff myself in one box. I can enjoy different aspects of different styles and aesthetics and what have you. So just keep that in mind too. You don't need to fit yourself into a pretty neat little box. And also not only does this pertain to style and such, but also your personality too, or decor, or just attitude that you have. Like I can suddenly decide that I want to be more softer and feminine, so I'm going to start axing things out of my attitude or how I portray myself to people. You don't have to stay a certain way. You can adjust different parts of your personality or your home or whatever it is. You can choose to start doing things differently now or tomorrow morning if you want. If you want to start getting ideas and listing things of how you're going to change in certain ways, you can do that. Nothing is holding you back. You don't have to stay the same way forever. We're not supposed to. Number three, I realize that finances are both really, really important and also not. Like, we need money to survive in this world. Like, we have to be financially responsible, but then there are sometimes when I'm like, ugh, it's just money. And I feel like there has to be balance with it. I mean, as somebody who is now 30 years old, I look back at all the times that I spent money in the most ridiculous ways and I get so mad at myself. Ugh, like I spent hundreds of dollars on that one thing that is not even part of my life anymore. I spent so much money on products or like makeup or clothing or hair curlers. Believe it or not, I literally did that one time. But it's just like stuff like that that I look back on that I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so financially, if I would have just saved that money, you know what I mean? Like I look back on all the times that I made money babysitting or doing whatever in high school and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I would have saved all of the money that I ever made in that job or even in my first job when I was a teenager, like I would be so much more financially well off by now. So I think that it's just really important to be financially responsible and not to keep up with the Joneses, keep up with yourself, and don't feel like you have to do what everyone else is doing, because that's really financially stupid, especially in our world right now where the economy is awful and the housing market is awful and everything is kind of just awful. Just be smart with your finances, especially if you're young. Like just stop buying all the stupid stuff. Number 4, rest and discipline go hand in hand. I realize that I tend to be the type of person that feels like if I have any spare time, I have to be productive with it. Whether it's cleaning my dishes or doing a house project or studying my Bible or doing whatever, like I always feel like I have to fill that time with something productive, which is why also getting into like the bookish world was a really big deal for me, because that's the first time I felt like I could actually do something that I enjoyed. But yes, I learned that in a faith perspective, God tells us to rest every once in a while. He rested when he created the universe. So I think it's really important to know that rest and discipline are both important, and to have a schedule and a routine that works for you is so incredibly vital. I'm really bad at this. I am really bad OCD. And so I love to like make lists and create routines, but I'm really bad at always sticking with them. So I was really proud of myself today that I actually I got up and I went outside and I fed my chickens. By the way, we got chickens. I'll talk about that more in a future video. And then I, did my workout and I stretched and I showered and I did like all of this stuff that I would love to be in my ideal routine, but I don't always do those things. So I just realized, like I said, that discipline is very important, but it also goes hand in hand with rest. When I have spare time, I need to not get on myself so much for cracking open a fiction book when I could be doing XYZ million and a half projects that I have to get done. Both are important, and we need that rest and recharge time to feel relaxed, because life is not supposed to be all grind, hustle, grind, hustle, grind. Relaxing and having time for rest is really important, both for body and mind and spirit. So that is something that I have recently come to accept, I should say. I learned a long time ago. I'm only just now actually accepting that. Number 5, compare everything to your dream self. And this is something that I was kind of just talking about, where I have to stop myself sometimes when I'm doing things and ask myself, is this who I want to be? Because when I think of the ideal Harmony, I'm like, she is disciplined, she's humble, she's kind, she's really feminine and soft, but she's also really tough and strong. And I have all of these ideas of my ideal self, and oftentimes I find myself doing things and I'm like, would my ideal self be doing this? So really just the concept here is everything that I do, and again, rest is important, but there are some things that I'm doing sometimes that I'm like, okay, my ideal self that I would love to be would not be doing this. There are a lot of life coaches and stuff that talk about this too, about if you want to live your dream life, wake up every day and whatever you do, ask yourself, is this going to get me closer to my dream life? That's kind of the same concept, but in regards to myself, and am I doing something that's going to help discipline me or strengthen me or soften me, whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's also goes hand in hand with creating your routine too. Is it going to help you get to your dream ideal self? Number 6, the world is a stage. I could go on about this for a very long time, because I think this goes a lot deeper than what comes to your mind initially when I say that. I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist. But I'm just going to talk about the main thing here, which is that we have to remember that literally the world is a stage, and everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, most people tend to put on their best when they are posting on social media or going around town out and about. So I think it's just really hard in our day and age not to constantly compare yourself to other people and their best. Now mind you, I think there's also a balance here too, because I'm also not a fan of people who constantly put like their dirty laundry and their real life stuff on social media. Sometimes it's a little too much, I feel like. Like, yes, of course, I think we should be showing that like I'm a real person and I have things going on too. My life isn't perfect, but I think that there's also a lot of things that just should be kept private. So yeah, I want to keep this one a little bit shorter. So really just to say, remember that the world is a stage. We all put on our best for other people, and we shouldn't be comparing our worst to other people's best. Number 7, all the grandparents were right. Slow living is superior. There's nothing more that I want than to just sit out on my porch and read books and tend to my chickens and tend to my garden and watch the rain fall and collect the eggs from my chickens and make everything from scratch and just live a slow and peaceful life. And also bird watching. Yep. The grand people were right. Number 8, it's okay that we're broken. I tried for so many years to try to be perfect because I was falsely told that that was part of what we were supposed to do. But it's okay to be broken. And it's because in our brokenness, God's glory can shine. And I could talk about this as well for many, many hours. It's okay that we're not perfect. It's okay that we're broken. It's okay that there are things that we cannot fix in this life. In our weakness, God's glory is everything. And I will be broken for that. Number 9, I think, right? I don't know. Maybe I should just start saying next. The importance of grace. Having it for other people, having it for ourselves, and especially in a world that is so driven by social media, it's where we spend a lot of our time, maybe even most of our time for some of us. Grace is so incredibly important. One of my favorite quotes from my favorite book is this, and it says, "How differently we are created. Isn't it wonderful?" It's from the book Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patty Callahan. I've talked about it plenty of times, but we are all so incredibly different, and that is a beautiful thing, and we need to have grace when people are different, whether it's a different opinion or a different belief or just in whatever way that we are different. I think that we need to love and appreciate that and just have grace for people, because we don't deserve grace ourselves. And so I just think that that emphasizes the grace that we need to give for other people, including ourselves, which also goes back to being okay that we're broken and just having grace and receiving grace from God for that. Next up is that there is wisdom in silence. There is wisdom in silence. There are times when it is best to just shut up. And that is a biblical principle as well, and I think that I have failed at this many, many times. So it's very risky for me to start a YouTube channel, and especially doing a video like this, because I mess up all the time with my words. I can't even tell you how many times in my past there have been times when I said something and I have regretted it and thought about it ever since. Especially when it comes to being angry or upset, frustrated, I've always been that person that just like instantly responds. Whether it's in person or on social media, I always just have a habit of just immediately just spewing, like right away. And I've recently gotten better at this, of just shutting up. Sometimes it's okay to just sit and process and not have to respond right away and just not saying anything. It might be for a little bit that you don't say anything, and sometimes it's best not to just say anything at all. So there is wisdom in silence, people. Take that one, store it away for later. Next up is one that I have learned over the last few years as well. Quick little background is that my husband and I have been a part of like the same group, friendship, environment, community for the past 10 years up until about a year and a half ago, and a bomb got thrown in the middle of it, and we have been separated and alone, and things have changed a lot. And so with that background, the next thing is that I have to accept that I am the villain in some people's story and there's nothing that I can do about it. Now mind you, there are things that we can do in regards to like apologizing, but there have been things that have happened where it's like, I've apologized, I've done my part, and it doesn't change much in the situation, and I'm still considered the villain in some people's stories. I've just had to learn to be okay with that. Sometimes you do everything you can do to fix a relationship and it doesn't get fixed. And also realizing that forgiveness doesn't always include reconciliation. It doesn't fix friendships every time. There have also been times when, you know, whether I or somebody else apologizes about something and we've forgiven each other and that's smoothed over, but we're not friends anymore. And it hurts and it's hard and it's devastating in some situations, but it's just the way life goes sometimes. And it's hard, especially like specifically in my situation where it's like I had a blowout with a small amount of people, like 2 or 3 people, but there are hundreds of people outside of that that see that situation and they don't get to hear my side of the story. And so even I look like the villain in their eyes too when they don't know the story. So it's also really important just to know that you don't always have every side to a story that you see from the outside. When something happens, whether it's a relationship blowing out or a family breaking apart or a business going under or whatever it is, you don't always know the whole story. You just don't. And we have to always understand that when we see things from the outside. It's really easy to quickly judge, but we gotta step back and realize that we are not all knowing. So again, have grace for people, and in regards to ourselves, sometimes we're the villain in other people's story and there's not always something that we can do about it. This next one is something that is applicable to marriage as well as friendships, and that's, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, then it shouldn't matter for the next 5 minutes. There are so many minute arguments and bickering matches that my husband and I have had, and even recently we've talked about this where we remember like, oh yeah, we were in a fight about something, but this happened, and we're like, what was that fight even about? And it's like, the fact that we can't even remember it, whether it was 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it is, it shouldn't have mattered at that time either. So just remember that next time that you get into an argument or a little tiff with your spouse or one of your friends, if it's not going to matter in a few years, don't let it matter for the next few minutes. Or maybe it is something that deserves a few minutes, but it doesn't deserve a few hours, you know, so just keep that in mind. Up next, also in regards to all the friendship stuff that I was just talking about, 4 quarters are better than 100 pennies. What does that mean, Harmony? I'll tell you what it means. It's better to have 4 really close in your court friends than it is to have 100 acquaintances who aren't really that important. Like I said, because we left that environment that we were part of and they were our closest friends in the whole wide world, so we thought, and now we're not in their lives anymore, they're not in our lives anymore, we had to start all over. We literally lost all of our friends and we had to start from scratch. And now being on this new journey of finding friends, it's really hard to get to know people as adults. And so we have our bars really high because we had these friends that we expected would be around forever, and now they're not. So now we have these different standards in our head for friendships because we want to make sure that the people who are going to be in our corner are actually going to be there, and no matter what, forever. And they understand us and they get us and they're growing with us and they're going to love us through everything, no matter what we get into or what we get out of. So 4 quarters is better than 100 pennies. Up next, it's okay to ask questions. No matter what this is in regards to, whether it's your relationship, whether it's medical stuff, whether it's religion, whatever it is, it's okay to ask questions. And if somebody is shutting you down because you're asking questions, that is a red flag. You should always be able to question things. My dog just walked under my camera, sorry. We need to understand that we have the right to ask questions, like I said, whether it's in a medical standpoint, a business standpoint, a friendship standpoint, a relationship standpoint, whatever it is, you have the right to ask questions. Up next, this is a big one. It's okay to not be okay. And I know this is such a cliche, but I I'm just really passionate about this one because for the longest time I did not believe in toxic positivity. I was like, no, that's an oxymoron. That's not even a thing. You should always be positive and have like a positive outlook and like what have you. And that sounds right? Like I said, just because it sounds good doesn't mean it's true. I still have the mindset of yes, we should always try to be positive. However, it's okay to say if you're not okay. And part of why I am very strong on this is because, again, the environment that we were a part of was very anti-negativity to an unhealthy extent. And this has a both spiritual and scientific background that I'm about to bring up. So one thing that I learned by Dr. Caroline Leaf, she is a neuroscientist, super incredibly smart, and she's also a believer. And part of what she had said in regards to toxic positivity is that if you're the kind of person where like your body, like you're clearly sick, you have all the symptoms, right? But you're like, no, like I'm fine, I'm healed, I'm healthy. You are actually damaging your brain. You are rewiring your brain to make it think that how you're feeling now is a good thing and not a bad thing. So that can actually have really negative consequences on your psyche and your body. The other thing too is that I feel like it's just really bad to lie to yourself. And this also falls into the spiritual practice, like I was thinking, of new thought. So there is a difference I recently learned between New Age and New Thought. New Age, it's a spiritual practice of like, you know, crystals and chakras and tarot cards and all that kind of stuff, which falls under the label of witchcraft and Christianity as well. And then there is New Thought, which is all about like manifestation and affirmations and all of this other stuff. And I, again, just don't believe that we are, as Christians, meant to lie to ourselves and say that we are doing okay when we're not. And I think it's also important to consider that King David, a man who was known to be after God's own heart, voiced when he was distressed, when he was troubled, when he was feeling sad and depressed. And I think there are many examples throughout the Bible like that. Mind you, like I said, I think it is important to always acknowledge like gratitude and having a positive outlook, and like even if you're in the midst of something really horrible, still holding on to faith and still holding on to hope, as the Apostle Paul has taught us to do. But again, I think there's also a difference between having a positive mindset while you're going through things and lying to yourself and saying that you're fine when you're not. It's okay to admit when you're not okay and to try to fix it. Next up is, if it's nourishing your soul, it's not wasting time. And this also goes back to, like I was saying, in regards to rest and discipline going hand in hand, but nourishing your soul, pumping up that joy in your spirit, then it's not a waste of time. If you're spending time with friends and you get that deep belly laugh that hurts, or if you're crying with your spouse while you're having a heart-to-heart talk, like these are the things that I'm like, oh, it nourishes my soul. If you're walking through the woods barefoot, listening to the birds sing and the trees sway, if like that nourishes your soul, like to me it does. And like if it nourishes my soul, then it's not a waste of time. And what even is wasting time? You know what I mean? Like time is meant to be spent doing the things that nourish us and give us joy and shape us and discipline us and form this beautiful life that God has given us. But I digress. Up next is nobody owes you agreement. We live in a day and age now where it's like if you disagree with somebody about something, ooh, you're about to get called all the bad labels and all the bad names, and I think it's ridiculous. Nobody owes you agreement. Like I said, we are all born differently. We all have different personalities and different passions and different convictions, and that's okay. We're meant to be that way. We are not promised a life where everybody's gonna think like us and be like us, and that's okay. Gosh, I feel like I'm the queen of getting unfollowed and blocked or removed from close friends lists because I disagree with somebody or because I post an opinion that just infuriates them. Like I literally just got a message 2 days ago that was like, excuse me, because I posted an opinion. Like, good grief, just because somebody shares their opinion on social media doesn't mean they think that you have to believe that too. Like, it's okay to just see something like, oh, I disagree, but that's an interesting perspective. Like, good grief, I could go about this for so long. Up next is that humility is the most attractive quality in a person. The more I read my Bible, the more I'm realizing that like the two words that seem to be describing the most incredible people in the Bible is humility and compassion. To be humble and have compassion for people. Like I feel like compassion is one of the words that describes Jesus the most. I'm not like, don't quote me on that. I feel like that might be true. But humility is just, especially when it's just like a soft, quiet humility. Like my husband and I talk about this all the time because he's like a super mega star athlete, super strong, holds records, like incredible, can fight. And so he doesn't talk about it like ever. And I think it's really attractive when it's like you see something and you know that like you or your spouse can do it, but like you just don't say anything about it. Like my husband doesn't feel the need to like talk to people in that kind of way of like, oh, I can take you. Like he doesn't do it, and I think it's so attractive because inside both of us know that he could. I'm sorry if this went in a weird direction, but this is just like one of the only ways that I can think to convey this idea. But all I have to say, humility, just I just think it's the most attractive quality. And I don't just mean like in a romantic partner, but also like in friendships and in leadership and in just every way. Humility is just, be humble. Be humble. It's a beautiful quality. Next is that sensitivity is a gift. And this is something, like I said, that I have learned recently because I am an incredibly sensitive person and I used to get in trouble for it all the time growing up. I would cry about everything. Got in trouble, I would cry. I was happy, I would cry. Excited, I would cry. If I was sad, I would cry. If I was angry, I would cry. And I'm still that way. I cry about everything. Watching movies, if it's beautiful outside, if I'm anything, I cry about everything. And like I said, I always got told that I was weak, that I needed to get control of my emotions, that I need to get it together, that it was weird, that like I would get in trouble for something as a kid and I would cry and my dad would say, see, I know you're guilty because you're crying. And I'm like, no, I'm just crying. And only recently did I realize that that's also a gift because I can feel things so deeply and it gives me a deeper understanding of people, of love, of emotions that God has given us. When I read my Bible, I can see different words and people maybe put like a surface level definition of it where I feel like I can go a lot deeper than a lot of people. And this isn't necessarily like a pump me up kind of a thing, like, oh, I can go deeper. Like, no, that's not what I mean. But I just mean it in like it gives me a different kind of understanding than other people. And that's a beautiful thing. And it's okay to be sensitive. It's also a strength. And I'm excited for the day when we have kids, and because I'm so sensitive that I'll be able to communicate with them differently than somebody who maybe isn't really sensitive at all. And again, maybe not being sensitive is also a strength in different ways too. It goes hand in hand, in my opinion. This next one might bother people, but I don't care. And there is a book titled this that I have not read yet, but I'm very excited to get it. And it is, You're Not Enough, and That's Okay. Now, I know people just got mad at me. But again, this goes back to toxic positivity and being able to not be okay. And also, again, in our weakness, we're made strong. Like God's glory shines through us. And I think part of the reason why so many women, I mean men too, but mostly women, really struggle nowadays with like not being enough. And it's because we put so much pressure on ourselves to be everything. We put pressure on ourselves to be a good wife, to be a good mother, to take care of the home, to be a boss babe for some people, to have this, have that. We put so much pressure on ourselves to be enough, and it's killing us. And I think that's why so many people are worse off now than they ever have been, because society and a lot of influencers always saying like, you're enough, girl, you're enough. And it's like, I can't even tell you how much peace it gave me when I really just sat down and was able to accept that like, I'm not enough. And that's okay. Like, that gave me so much peace. And I can't wait to read the book. It's by Allie Beth Stuckey, by the way. You're Not Enough, and That's Okay. And it's about the toxic positivity culture that we have. And I'm so excited to read it. I think she also talks a lot about self-love and how that has played into a lot of the toxicity nowadays. But yeah, you're not enough, and that's okay. It's so much more peaceful this way to know that I'm not enough, and it's all right. Like, I can not be enough in this area of my life for the time being. Like, we're not created to be enough. That's why we need Jesus. That's why we need Jesus, because we're not enough. So good. Up next, I think this is number 22. I hope I'm not wrong. Again, this is gonna get a little bit more my personal beliefs. I believe this is true. I don't believe that this is just my opinion. I believe that this is universally true, and that is Jesus is the only way. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. He is the one mediator between God and man. The one mediator, nobody else. Jesus Christ alone. He is enough, and he is the only way. Number 23, compare everything to Scripture. Everything. Once again, going back to my first thing of just because it sounds good doesn't mean it's true. Compare everything to Scripture. Every single pastor you hear, compare them to the Word. I, again, can talk about this for hours as well. There are so many big pastors who are popular, have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they are not teaching truth. They take a scripture out of context and they try to make you feel good, like you're enough and you're this and you're awesome and all this stuff. When in reality, they're using that scripture completely out of context, and that's not what the Bible says at all. Compare everything to Scripture, my friends. Stay biblical. 24, up next. Always pray for God's will. Always. His will is better. You pray, all your things, all the stuff. Pray, 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 and always end it with, your will be done. His will is greater than ours, and I think that praying for God's will to be done over ours is one of the biggest displays of great faith in him. I once heard a very, very, very famous pastor that if I said him, a lot of you would know who he was, say that he thinks that praying for God's will to be done is a lack of faith because you don't think that God's going to do what you want. And I was just like mind blown, absolutely mind blown, because God is sovereign. He knows all. He knows better than we do, and his plans are perfect. I want God's will over my own every time. And that's scary to say sometimes because it's like maybe his will is the complete opposite of what I want to happen, but his will is better than ours. It's so much better. He's God. He knows better. He loves better. He's everywhere, always, all the time. He's just, pray for God's will. If you don't know what to pray, ask Holy Spirit to pray on your behalf and to pray for God's will to be done. 25, and this is kind of wrapping up that faith segment, but if I'm wrong about Jesus, I have nothing to lose. If I'm right, I have everything to gain. I used this as an argument when I was probably like 15. My mom was dating a man at the time who was an atheist. Not only not a believer, but he was like kind of against Christianity altogether. And I remember we were at Valley Fair, which is a theme park here in Minnesota, and we were standing in line, and I don't even remember how it got brought up. I said something about God or Jesus probably, and he came at me about it. And I got him to think though, because that's what I said. I was like, okay, let's say that I'm wrong about Jesus. Let's say I'm wrong. If I die, okay, that's it. Nothing. I think he was like I can't think of the term, but basically when you're dead, there's nothing. Like, that's it. I said, if I'm right about Jesus, when I die, I get to go to paradise. I get to spend the rest of eternity with him and the people that I love and live happily ever after forever, I'm in a win-win situation here. Let's say that I am right about Jesus and you're not. Your outcome is a little worse than mine, I'd say. You can't lose if you believe in Jesus. You can't lose. I'm very excited about that. 26. Your dreams are not too small. They're not too small. Once again, was constantly in an environment talking about how you needed to dream big. It was always about big house and nice car and Louis Vuitton purses and traveling to Europe and doing all these things, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things. If that's your dream, that's wonderful. I hope those dreams come true for you. That's great. That's lovely. The problem was that we were always told that our dream was too small, that we needed to dream bigger, because mine and Steven's dream at the time was just having a nice little house on a big a big plot of land and having animals, and I didn't want a nice big fancy car. I think at the time I was like, I just want like a Mini Cooper or like a vintage Bug, I think that would be really cool. I would really like to have like a Toyota 4Runner. A Jeep Renegade would be sweet, you know? Like those were the car that I wanted. Whereas everybody else had, you know, pictures of like Lamborghinis and Bentleys and Mercedes and all these things. And that's great, that's wonderful. But I was always told that my dream was too small, that I needed to dream bigger. And it made me feel really bad. I'm here to tell you that your dream is not too small. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, that's big enough. I mean, you're raising future generations that could change the world. If you want to make a difference for the world, it starts in your home. Wanting to be quote-unquote just a stay-at-home mom, that's not a small dream. Even if you're just, and again, just a homemaker, you don't have kids, you can still make a huge impact on people. You don't have to have a huge dream. You don't have to be a CEO of a business. You don't have to be a multi-billionaire to have a dream worthwhile. Like, you know what I mean? Your dream isn't too small. It's okay to just want a smaller, simpler life. There's nothing wrong with that. Your dreams are not too small. Whatever size they are, I hope they come true for you. If you want that Lamborghini, girl, I hope you get it. If you want to be a CEO, you work your way up. And for those of us who want smaller things, you know, I want a medium-sized house so I can host family because I like hosting. You know, I want a medium-sized house on 100 acres of land, and I want goats and chickens and a big garden, and I would love to travel. I've been to Europe before. I went to Italy once in college, and it was wonderful, and I really liked it, and I would love to go back to Europe sometime. I would love to go to Scotland and Ireland and Switzerland and, you know, stuff like that, but it's not something that I'm like dying over, because once again, I know that when I die I'm going to heaven and it's going to be way cooler than Europe, and for all I know, when the new earth comes, it's going to be Europe but like on steroids, even better, and I'll be able to go then, you know? So like, travel isn't, it's something that I love to do, but it's not something I'm tripping about, you know what I mean? Okay, moving on. Number 27, distinguish yourself by being kind. I saw a quote on Pinterest quite a while ago from this girl, and it was her first day at academia in college. And it was, I want to say it was like a PhD program, I'm not sure, but it was a bunch of like very, very smart people. And the professor came in and he said, we're all smart here, distinguish yourself by being kind. And I thought that was the greatest quote. I mean, it's true, we're all smart, we're all humans, we're all, you know, this, that, the other thing, beautiful. Distinguish yourself by being kind. And I feel like that's such a rare thing to run into nowadays, as sad as that sounds. Like, there are definitely good and kind people out in the world, but I feel like so many people don't display it that often, you know? And I love that Steven and I try our hardest to do that. My husband is the kind of person that, like, if we're driving down the highway and we see somebody on the side of the road with a flat, we're pulling over 100% of the time. I mean, last winter we had crazy blizzards and stuff, and I don't even know how many times Steven got out of his car to help push somebody out of a ditch, or would dig somebody out, or it makes me all emotional. But that's the kind of person that Steven is. Oh my gosh, what the heckins? I told you I was sensitive. But distinguish yourself and set yourself apart by being a kind person. If you see somebody being mean to somebody, stand up, be kind. On social media, leave a kind comment for somebody. Like, I know we're in the habit of just scrolling and like, oh, like, scroll, like, say something kind. We're all smart, we're all beautiful, we're all wonderful, we're all lovely. Set yourself apart by being kind. 28, up next, protect your peace. Gosh, again, this also comes with balance of having the maturity to challenge yourself on certain things, and, you know, not only being surrounded by people who believe the same way that you do, you know, encourage yourself to grow. I have friends who believe in complete opposite things than I do, and I'm still friends with them. I love them dearly. With that said, there are people who believe differently than I do that are just jerks about it. And so you have to protect your peace, and it's okay to separate yourself. I've had to do it with family members, I've had to do it with friends, I've had to do it with all kinds of people, and it's okay to protect your peace in a healthy way. Again, there are family members where it's like I have not completely 100% cut off people, but there are people that I just keep my distance because they disturb my peace. Same with social media, it's okay to mute people, restrict people. I've had to do that before where somebody's post was, I mean, every single post of theirs that I saw, it just like gave me this rush of anxiety, and it just really stressed me out, but I still loved that person, so I just restricted them for a while or muted them for a while, whatever it is, you can protect your peace and still love people. And then there are people in my life whom it was just a clean cut out because it was destroying my peace and really disturbing my life. So it's okay to do that. And you can love people from a distance. You can pray for people from a distance. There are people that I love dearly that I only see occasionally because I want to protect my peace, even though I still love them. Still, like I said, I still love them and pray for them from a distance, and that's okay. 29, sanctification is a lifelong process. Again, I was part of false teachings for many, many years that taught perfection was necessary in order to gain access to certain levels of heaven. Maybe I'll share my story of that one day. But I learned that sanctification is a lifelong process, and I love the quote by C.S. Lewis, who talks about how we have to try every single day to get closer and closer, but it's not God's intention to get us to absolute perfection in this life, but it is His intention to get us as close as we can before we die. And so I try to tell myself that all the time. I have like a home decor piece in my living room or in my office or something, I don't know, that says live by grace, not perfection. And that really helps keep me together a lot, because while we should be striving to be quote unquote perfect in the sense of like, we should always try to love people, we should always try to be kind first, we should, you know, restrict our anger, we should hold our tongue sometimes, like we should always do the right things, you know what I mean? But we need to have grace for ourselves when we don't, because we are human, we're imperfect, and sanctification is a lifelong process. It's okay if you mess up every once in a while. That's what the grace of Jesus is for. Thank God. And number 30. Oh my gosh, I'm 30. It's wonderful. Number 30, life is the special occasion. Yep. I have always been that person that has nice clothes in the back of my closet, or I have nice candles in the bottom drawer, or I have nice this or nice that, and I don't use them because what if I'm going to need them for a special occasion? Like makeup, I hardly ever touch it because what if I'm going to need it for a special occasion? As if like it's not going to last. But I just have gotten into this mindset of like, what the heck am I doing? Life is a special occasion, and it's okay to treat it as such. It's okay to use your nice candles right now. Light that beeswax candle because you deserve it. Wear your nice dresses, even if you're not leaving the house, even if you're just going to be home all day and doing dishes or reading a book or playing with your animals, whatever. I say that because my cat is sleeping right next to me. It's okay to wear your nice clothes, even if you're not going anywhere. Romanticize it all because it's worth it. Life is a special occasion. We only get to come here once. Contrary to past teachings that I was receiving, we only come here once. Make it special. Make it worthwhile. Like it is worthy anyways, but like, you know what I mean? It's okay to do the extra stuff just because. It makes it all feel special, and I love it. Those are my 30 things. I have my quote that I will share with you really quick. This is, I don't know, I guess my life quote, my favorite quote. Maybe it'll change in the future, but right now this is like the thing that I love. But this quote says, just love God and do as you please, for a soul trained in love to God will do nothing to offend the one who is beloved. And that wrecked me in the best way possible. And I think that if you're a person who is maybe questioning if you're enough for Jesus, if you're enough for your faith, know this: number one, nobody is. And number two, He is enough, so we don't have to be. And number three, if you're worried about that, if you're worried about being good enough, that's a sign that you care about being better. And that's a good thing. Because as I've heard in the past, crappy people don't care about getting better. If you're concerned about wanting to be better and wanting to do good, it's a pretty good sign that you want to live for Jesus. I think that a good sign of salvation and being saved by Jesus is that you care, that you want to be better. So anyway, I don't know where that came from, but yeah, all that to say, those are just 30 quick lessons that I've learned in my life. And again, like I said, a lot of them aren't very deep or profound. Some of them are just pretty surface level, but I think that they're still important. And of course, this is not everything. There are many probably more important lessons that I've learned in life that I did not share because I'm maybe just not quite ready to go there yet. I'm starting to get to that point though where I'm getting ready to talk about things that I never thought I would. So who knows? stick around, you might see it. Thank you so much for being here. I do have some upcoming videos. I won't abandon you forever, but I have a thrifted book video coming up and a recent read coming up, and hopefully a reading vlog soon, because the weather has been beautiful here in Minnesota lately, which is why I'm filming outside on my porch, and I'm just so happy. And I guess if I could add just another thing on that list really quick is just gratitude, how important gratitude is. That's something I've been learning lately. In regards to a lot of health stuff too, I'm just realizing how much we take for granted and how grateful we should be that we are alive and well and all of the abilities that we have in our bodies, and I'm just so grateful. So yeah, add that to the list. But anyway, I've been blabbing enough. Thank you guys so much for being here and listening to me talk and rant, and I hope some of this was helpful to you. Let me know if anything maybe shifted your perspective or helped. I would really love to hear from you guys. And yeah, thank you so much. I love you so dearly, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.